Philadelphia in 1929. It turned out that I had great interest in things electrical.
He had been thrown into situations that were beyond what he thought he was capable of, and yet he learned that sooner or later he rose to the occasion.
I just studied and studied and studied.
Someone extended his hand and said, "Congratulations."
I said, "For what?" He said, "The full catalog's out at MIT and you're on the faculty." Whatever job you're given, ask yourself, how can I do that job better than it has ever been done before?
And he came up to me one day and said, "Why don't you come to work for my company?" And I said, "What company?"
He dreamed of a place in which all of us had the opportunity to fulfill our own personal dreams.
You have to have the courage to be different. You can never do anything better unless it's different.
The best things we've ever done are things no one was thinking about until they experienced them. And then they couldn't imagine ever living without them.
Never lose your imagination. Always dream of things that are better and think about ways to reach those things.
Good morning. I wanted to start with that video for two reasons. One is many people don't know the history of Bose. We're a little bit of a secretive place out in Framingham. And Dr. Bose is who you saw featured in that video. And a lot of what he said there is at the root of the culture at Bose. And so this idea of being different, and if you're going to be different, you need to be better. And you need to imagine things that no one has thought of, I thought was such a great corollary to what we're talking about today with AI. I think if Dr. Bose was here, he would be so excited about the Institute and what's being built here, because it's exactly the practical spirit that he brought to Bose over 50 years ago when he founded the company, when startups weren't a big deal, right? Not like startups today. I think leaving MIT and starting Bose was certainly something that was talked about as being unique and maybe crazy. So I wanted to start with that because I think it does set the foundation for why at Bose we're so excited about being now a customer. I thought we were a partner, but now I know we're the customer of the Roux Institute, and I'm very excited to be a customer. And we're looking forward to a great partnership with all of you. So sound. Bose is about sound, and we believe at Bose that sound is an incredibly powerful force, and it connects people. It connects you to the things that you love most, whether that's your music, movies, your loved ones. Nothing evokes a memory like sound, right? So we believe in sound as an incredibly powerful force, and while we're not saving lives like the life sciences companies that I'm sure you'll hear from and that were talked about earlier, we do think that the work we do enriches lives and makes people's lives better. And so what I want to talk about is how are we bringing AI into that world? And if you think about the history of audio and really the history of Bose, everything at the start was analog. Everything was analog. And there was this moment in time where everyone realized we need to move from analog to digital signal processing. And Bose was at the forefront of that movement with some excitement and a lot of trepidation from engineers who had grown up learning analog and believed that was the way to bring the best to customers and to people around the world. And we're at this critical moment now where we're gonna pivot from digital signal processing to AI being the foundation of how we experience sound going forward. And so we're obviously committed to this space. We want to make sure we're at the forefront of that movement. And the thing that stands between us and getting that done is talent. So while we're a customer of the Institute, the reason we're so excited is we can't reach our aspirations without talent who understands all of the aspects that were just talked about on the stage, right? The technical component, the human component, the AI component, and I would add a fourth one that I think is really important, and it's at that intersection of being really great at two things, Dave, that you talked about, which is the ability to ask the golden question. Data and algorithms are useless unless we know what questions we want to ask. Otherwise, we get out a lot of interesting things, but not useful things. And so this idea of building a large group of people who understand the technology and the AI, but have enough domain expertise to form those golden questions and to partner with others in organizations like Bose to ask those questions, that's where I think we believe the magic will be unlocked. So let me talk a little bit about how we're thinking about AI at Bose. And I think there are two dimensions, and I suspect most companies have both. There's an operational component of AI, which is incredibly powerful, and it's where most companies have started with data and algorithms and data science. And those are things like really understanding our supply chain, really being able to forecast our business using a breadth of data that we could have never imagined, to really figure out what we need from a supply chain standpoint, which turns out to be more important today than any of us could have possibly imagined, given what's happening in our global supply chains right now. So that is certainly an opportunity for Bose. Marketing. Knowing your customer, personalization, the ability to take a whole host of information in a way that's private, in a way that is appropriate, in a way that's human, to make their experiences better and to personalize the way that we interact with them. Absolutely part of what we're doing at Bose as well. And so this idea of using data to operate our business better is a natural place to start, and we think that's where most companies started, including Bose. That's not what I want to talk about, though. You'll hear more about that, I think, from others. What I thought I would talk about is the excitement we see in audio experiences. The heart and soul of who we are at Bose is how do we make the actual product and experience we bring to our customers better on the basis of using AI as a mechanism to do that. And so there are a lot of ways we do that, and I want to talk about 3 areas. And I think as we do that, I want to put AI in the context not just of something that stands alone, but how it works in a system alongside hardware and software and a human being to bring together an experience which is truly delightful and different. And that's what we're always seeking at Bose. So I want to give you 3 examples, and in each one, I will give you a baby step of something that we're doing today, and then I want you to imagine what that could be like in the future, because I think those golden questions of the future we haven't asked yet, right? Those are still in front of us. So let me start with contextual awareness. So what does that exactly mean? In our context, that means understanding where you are in any given moment in time, what the context is around you, what's happening in your life when you're wearing an audio device, as an example, a pair of headphones, either in ear or over your ears, or in a pair of glasses, right? Something else that you might have. Understanding the context of what's happening around you, and essentially having that audio device become an extension of your ears and your brain. So let me give you an example. Let me give you 2 examples of this one. The first one is something we call active sense. This is something that you can get on our wearable products. And essentially what this does is allows you to hear transparently what's happening in the world around you while you're hearing your music or your phone call or your podcast. And if you're starting in your apartment or in a quiet room, the noise cancellation will be completely off and you'll hear what's going on around you. As you walk out the door and the noise comes up from the street around you, the noise cancellation comes up automatically. It senses you're in a new environment. It doesn't want to shut out completely the world around you because you need to hear the bus or the fire engine that's coming down the street, but it allows you to keep a more balanced noise level so that you can still enjoy the music that you were listening to while you have awareness in the world around you. You step onto the T, changes again, right? So the ability to sense and contextualize through data what is happening in your surroundings, and then to be able to adjust what's happening on the fly. So that's an example, a small example, but an interesting one. A second example is imagine you're in your living room and you're watching television and the commercial comes on and it turns out to be about 30 or 40% louder than what you were watching. So raise your hand if you experience this. So what if we understand the kind of content that's coming through your audio device and we're bringing that level down for you so you're not riding the remote with the volume and the mute button? And simultaneously on the other side, if we understand you're watching a movie, raise your hand if this happens to you, and the music is so loud you can't stand it, and as soon as someone starts to talk, you have no idea what they're saying. And so you're constantly with the up and down on the volume buttons. If we know what the content is and we're collecting the data about what's happening in your environment, we're able to move the volume up and down for you in that context, so you don't have to do that yourself. Two very simple examples with relatively simple data coming in and relatively simple contextual awareness cues that we're able to react to today in products that are in the market. But imagine where this could go, right? Imagine if we could sense a lot more about what's happening in the world around you, and we can sense the kind of content you're looking for, the volume level, the noise cancellation level, how you want to receive those inputs, how you're changing between a podcast and what that requires from an audio standpoint versus music versus movies. Maybe you're moving from your car to the sidewalk, back in the car, pumping gas, you're fumbling with your devices. What if all of that was happening automatically? That's the magic that we think can be delivered with contextual awareness. The interesting thing about it, though, is accuracy. When we think about AI, it is, like you said, Usama, 50% of the data is missing and a third of it's bad, right? So when you think about contextual awareness, when we get it right, it's magical. When we get it wrong, you're really upset. You're really upset that we turned down the volume or we changed the noise cancellation or we changed the input levels. And so this is something that, using the data, we've got to get to at least 95 to 98% right, because if 10 or 20% of the time you're disappointed by the action that we're taking on your behalf, it becomes an incredibly frustrating feature, and you never want to buy a Bose product again. So this is where, being 80% right in an AI context is awesome, right? But we need to get to a place where we're 95, 97, 99% right. And that's where we think it's really exciting to start to explore the newness of what's available to get us to that level. So contextual awareness is area number one. The second one that I want to talk about is hearing what you want. So we all are familiar with noise cancellation. Noise cancellation was invented at Bose, active noise cancellation. For those of us who are maybe a little bit older, we can remember that first transatlantic flight we got on. We put on that pair of headphones, we turned on the button, and it was like nothing we had ever experienced before. Hearing that noise cancellation and the difference that it made in your well-being on a transatlantic flight is something that I certainly remember, and I suspect many of you do as well. But noise cancellation has always been on and off. You have it or you don't have it. We think the future of noise cancellation is something that we talk about as hearing what you want to hear. So typically, you don't want to hear everything or nothing. There are things that you want to hear, and there are other things that you don't want to hear. The power of AI and data is that we can now start to discern the difference between the two. So imagine you're at a noisy restaurant or a noisy bar or a noisy place in general, and you're trying to have a lovely conversation with the person that you're there with, and all you can hear is the din of the restaurant around you. And you really struggle to hear the conversation that you went there for. You probably don't want all of the noise around you to go away. I think we all appreciate post-COVID being in a public place with a little bit of clatter and chatter around us. But you do want to make sure that you're actually able to focus on the conversation you're meant to be having. So one of the things that we're working on in earnest from a hearing perspective and enabling hearing what you want is to amplify those sounds, understand what is the voice you're trying to hear, not the one at your neighbor's table, but the one right across from you. How do we use both the position of the microphones, the hardware, the software that's embedded, as well as AI to discern the sounds you want to hear versus those that you don't? We think this idea of hearing what you want is the future of audio and certainly the future of noise cancellation. No longer is it an on-off switch that we toggle on the plane to experience the magic, but it becomes the difference between what I want to hear and what I don't. Maybe it's an individual's voice. Maybe it's a baby crying. Maybe it's the doorbell that you want to hear. Being able to articulate which sounds you want to hear versus those that you don't, and using data to identify them, we think is an incredibly important part of how you want to experience audio devices going forward. So second is hearing what you want to hear. The final one I'll talk about is really at the core of who we are, which is immersive audio. So when you're experiencing your favorite movie, your favorite video game, your favorite music, you want to experience that in the way that it was intended, the way that it was designed, the way that the artist wanted you to experience that. And if you've invested a lot of money in a sound system in your home with 5 or 7 or 14 speakers, depending on how much you decided to do, you probably have a great environment to experience that. But most of the time, you're not sitting in exactly the right position, in exactly the right spot, with exactly that system to experience it. And so what we're now starting to do is take data, disaggregate all of those things you love, music, gaming, movies, and be able to position that sound around you using AI as a mechanism to create the venue where you want to experience sound. That could be your living room. That could be Symphony Hall right up the road. That could be a lot of different places where you might want to put yourself in the middle of a situation, and we can render and recreate the music in that environment so you feel like you're sitting right there, but we can't do that without AI and without data. And so we're excited about the opportunity to bring contextual awareness, hearing what you want to hear, and creating this amazing immersive sound in any environment that you happen to be in, recreating exactly the experience that you hope to have. So we're excited about the partnership. We're excited about the talent that all of you are building and becoming, and we hope that you'll come see us at Bose and help us create these amazing experiences. Thank you very much for having me.